Hello, I'm Dawn Saint. I work with Chad Gorham and the Northeast Alabama Community College Program as an ESL bilingual local regional resource instructor. I got my master's in education and learning technology from Western Governors University, and I'm also the Alabama's Best Plus trainer.
Hi, and I'm Georgia Bowick. I received my undergraduate degree from the University of Alabama in political science and English. I went to UAH in Huntsville and got my certification for TESOL, and then got my master's degree in English. I'm presently teaching ESL, the intermediate level, at Calhoun Community College, Huntsville campus.
We're excited to be a part of the second ALAPCAE teacher training video and the first video exclusively for ESL teachers. It's called ESL Instruction 101, and during the next 50 minutes or so we hope to share some ideas about classroom management, interactive instructional ideas, and other resources. There's also a CD available with other documents and tools to help complete this training video. And whenever you see the CD clip on the screen, it's pictured also on this title slide. Be sure to look on the CD for additional resources.
We're an urban campus in Huntsville, and I teach English as a second level at the intermediate level.
In contrast, our ESL program in the northeast part of Alabama is mostly rural. Therefore, most of our classes are multi-leveled, meaning that one teacher may have low-level literacy students in a class alongside advanced ESL students who are almost ready for their GED. Our ESL population is predominantly Hispanic. We do have a few from Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, but they're the minority. So we are able to take advantage of some bilingual teachers and bilingual materials, especially when we need to explain difficult concepts and help our beginning students navigate daily life skills and problems that they find.
On the other hand, in Huntsville, we have a very diverse population. We have people from literally all over the world, and that's reflective in our classrooms at Calhoun. While there are some variations within the class level that I teach, it's close enough that we can put them all in one level and teach whole class methods. Good teachers and good programs are the basis for recruiting our students. We have advertised to small degrees on billboards and things like that, announcements at PTA, that kind of thing. But most of our students come to us because they've heard about us from other students. Our students are our best recruiters.
That's why it's so important that we meet their needs in class. Students vote with their feet. If they don't like our programs, they'll leave. And so that's why we're doing this training video, to help you motivate, encourage, and keep your students. Besides word of mouth, students in our area have helped us disseminate flyers in their workplace break rooms. Since we are a bilingual area, we have English on one side and Spanish on the other. It includes GED and ESL and reading classes all in the same. These flyers are also sent home through the public school system, and we put them in public service agencies throughout the Tri-County area, like the health department, driver's license, WIC, that's be the health department, just anywhere where people congregate with services. We also have informational trifold brochures. We take the county fairs, job fairs, and get them out that way. Many local radio stations in our area also do free public service announcements and even do an interview with our boss from time to time. Our college website also has a current class schedule always posted in English and Spanish, and several staff members have magnetic signs on their cars, and others have some signs in their front yard, especially if they live on a main thoroughfare. We have several really large signs that we try to put up at community events like ball games and picnics and fairs and other celebrations. But agreeing with Georgia, it is the word of mouth that is the biggest. We're just trying to use every tool we can to get them in.
The test we use at Calhoun is the TABE Class E. We have resource materials available for the teacher. The test comes in two parts, Form A and Form B. The teacher that does the enrollment test usually uses the level 3A to test. And in my class, I alternate 1 month with 3A and 3B when I do the testing. The scores of the test are run from these Scantron sheets, the bubble-in sheets. And students are assigned to classes based on their scores on this TABE Class E test. I test once a month normally. When students reach a certain score within that grade level, they're eligible to be moved up to level 4. But the score is not the only criteria. I also judge whether or not the students' listening and speaking skills are up to moving on to the next level. If not, they stay with me a while longer.
Since our classes are more rural and spread out, we just do our registration and testing in class. Usually the teacher has to do his or her own testing before class or after class, or sometimes during class when the class is involved in an activity that doesn't really need the teacher's help. Students can enroll with us on any day of class. They just show up and get started the same day. We also use the TABE Class E for our higher level students in reading and writing. But initially most of our students use what's called the Best Plus. It's an oral interview that can take anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes and gives an NRS score, that's the National Reporting System score, for level speaking and listening only. We especially like it for our low literacy students because if they really can't understand anything, they're done the test in 2 or 3 minutes. Teachers who want to administer this test must go through a 5-hour training that is free for adult ed teachers. This is a test administrator guide, and the test is either run on a CD or they have it now available in a thumb drive format because some people are working off of netbooks and lap pads and I don't know, the new technology that doesn't have a CD-ROM capacity. You can tell I don't have one yet. There's also a Best Plus refresher course available for people who have gone through the training. They do not need a trainer to administer this. It kind of recalibrates their skill in grading the rubric. In our program, we ask our teachers to do a recalibration every year. If you want any more information about Best Plus training, the resource CD will have information. I'm the contact person. I am the trainer for the state. CAL, the Center for Applied Linguistics, has a very helpful website which will be on the CD. It's a self-paced professional development module entitled Developing Oral Proficiency of Adults Learning English. You can click through the module and find the resources on the right-hand column. Pay special attention to the section that's labeled Instruction and the links on the right-hand side. And you'll find lesson skills directly correlated with the Best Plus skills and competencies, designed to help your students improve specifically in the areas of listening and speaking, and this information will be on the CD-ROM.
I arranged my classroom in a rectangular fashion with 2 openings into the middle. My students seem to like it this way, and my idea is that the students all are facing each other and nobody is on the back row and nobody is on the front row. They're all just in a circle. If you have to share a classroom with somebody else, it may not be convenient to do this, but for me it works really well. You could also, if you have individual desks, you could arrange them in a circle and achieve the same thing.
ESL teachers don't get much sit-down time, and Georgia's arrangement helps the teacher wander and monitor, help the students as they need to, and can be really good for teaching in similar groups or in the whole class. With a multi-level class, which many of our teachers across the state might have, there still is teaching to the whole class. But still, sometimes it's good for the groups to sit together. Other times it's good to mix up the groups, making sure that each participant in the group has a specific task that they can handle based on their level of English. Sometimes it's good to work alone, and this gives the student a little more opportunity to absorb new concepts and try to figure out things for themselves. Sometimes in a group or with a pair, they're always relying on their partner or their teammates to help them out. Pair work is a wonderful tool for an ESL class because half the class is talking at the same time, and my students, a lot of them have expressed that that is where they really feel the need and they feel insecure in their ability to try to communicate. You can do it with mixed pairs in a multi-level class or with pairs of similar ability. It really all depends on the specific activity that you're doing at the time. One way of bringing some variety into oral pair work is called a line drill. After a few minutes of speaking, one line rotates, allowing for repeated practice of the same thing with a different partner. Now, you don't want to give a long time with the same partner, maybe a minute. Sometimes I clap my hands and just kind of as an indication to move to a new partner. A lot of times you may just use a mingle activity. Everybody gets up and talks to somebody and then finds somebody else with a specific task in mind. Another idea is a concentric circle. This works if you have a large space, a smaller circle in the middle and a larger circle on the outside, and you're rotating one of the circles around. Maybe that one is speaking and one is listening, and it can be either the inner circle or the outer circle, and they rotate around. Variety is important. A lot of our students come to us either before they go to work or after they've gone to work. They're tired, and sitting down for a whole class period will make them a little more tired. They need to get up, and they need to be doing things.
It's important to remember, too, that in placing the students in the position that I do in my classroom, that students get to see and react to each other. My idea is for my classroom to be very interactive. My students seem to bond very well. Students form friendships with people from around the other side of the world from them. It's quite rewarding to see this take place in the classroom. And this also, I think, helps in student retention and in enrollment. Back to word of mouth. If the happy student is there, they're going to tell their friends about it.
Mm-hmm. Another way to keep our students involved in a whole class atmosphere, I have each student's name on a little tiny card I keep in a cup. And as I get ready for a group activity, whether it be going over homework that we're not putting on the board, we're just going over it orally in the seat, or reviewing a new concept, I pull out the names, and it's a good way to check attendance and say, oh, has anybody heard from Erica? When somebody who's in the cup is not in class. And I can use them on my desk and arrange them as far as, okay, these are the ones asking the question, these are the ones answering. I can flip them around. I can make sure everybody gets involved without just going around the room in order. Sometimes students will count ahead and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, I'm question 7, and they'll get ready for 7 and kind of forget what was going on with all the others. It kind of keeps everybody on their toes a little bit more. And I can also target my students a little bit. If I have a student who is very new to my class and finding things a little difficult, I can kind of move their cards so where they'll get an easier question. If it's a really hard one and there's names next, I can kind of shuffle around and get somebody else. So I can manipulate and control that a little bit. Another interesting thing for keeping the class all involved is asking them to rephrase what somebody just said. Maybe I asked Pedro a question, and I'm going to ask Olivia, okay, what did Pedro say? Ooh, she had to be paying attention. So she can ask him to repeat it. And so it kind of keeps everybody on their toes. Ask them to summarize what I just said. I gave instructions. Sometimes it's nice to call on students who might be chatting with themselves instead of paying attention to you, and it just keeps everybody involved and keeps them actively listening and learning.
My ESL classes are not for passive learners. I try to keep the class interactive at most of the time during class by conversations among themselves with me. Sometimes I might ask them when I first start the class, how was your weekend? And if they just say good or bad or whatever, I say, well, what made it good or what made it bad? That gives them extra opportunity to practice their listening and speaking skills. And again, this also helps the students get to know each other. We talk about topical things such as the news, what's happening in the world or in Huntsville at that moment. And the object is to keep the students active and not just sitting passively to a lecture. I use the exercises and books to do the comprehensive learning experience, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And I try to work these together. I don't do a whole lot of a list of this or a list of that. I try to integrate the 4 skills together as best I can, and that hopefully will keep the class interesting.
There are many ways to structure the lesson in a multi-level class. The diagrams on this page are just an example. When a teacher works with the group in the beginning of class, the middle of class, and the end of class. When the group is independent the whole time and the teacher's going back and forth. When the group's working kind of on individual tasks as far as what they need. This was a whole separate workshop that I did at one time, and the main thing is to just keep in mind that we need to meet all of our students' needs. They want time with the teacher, but we probably can't be face-to-face with all of them all the time. If we're meeting their needs while they're working on another independent or pair group activity, they'll still be happy students. Take a look on the CD and you'll find some extra resources about different arrangements and different possibilities for how you can actually structure and manage your multi-level class. It is really important in a multi-level class to have self-access materials so that you can focus on the needs of one group while another group is still busy learning. That can be in the form of, computers or audio or index cards or magazines and a myriad of other possibilities. The CD will contain a special page document of information on easy to make and easy to use, that's important for us busy teachers, multi-level activities that you can make, that you can use quickly with your students as a whole class. And yes, you can have a whole class working on something multi-levelly, if that's a word. They can all be engaged in the same activity with different levels of tasks, different degrees of difficulty with the task that they're doing, as well as they can obviously do independent work on their level.
One of the things I like to do with my students is to give them puzzles. You can find books of puzzles most anywhere. You can get them off the internet also. Try to tie them in with something that we're studying at that time. Maybe it's about jobs, or maybe it's about a particular holiday or something we've been talking about. But it's a fun exercise. It's also good for building vocabulary and working with spelling as well.
The CD, the resource CD, has a listing of some popular free websites where you can find and even create word puzzles. We'll also list some of our favorite puzzle books. I brought a couple with me today. Thematic activities for beginners. They have 2 different versions dealing with all kinds of topics in the house: vehicles, food, adjectives, healthcare, facial expressions, verbs of action, tools, daily activities, alphabet, human body, classroom, clothing, fruits and vegetables, more action verbs, animals, nature, transportation, sports. Within each unit of these, you will find various puzzles, scrambled words, alphabetical order, fill in the missing letters, word search, anagrams, different pictures using the vocabulary, crossword puzzles, multiple puzzles with each topic. And adult ESL students need multiple exposure to new words before they're really attached in their brain and in their heart. One thing to think about as you can do puzzles is they can also be interactive. One partner has half the answers or half of the questions, and the other partner has the other half. And so puzzles can be either an independent activity or it can be an interactive activity. If it's a challenging puzzle, you may want to have a small group work together on it, helping each other. Matching cards, another type of independent activity or pair activity, I often use at the beginning of class as students are coming in. You can match up synonyms and antonyms, compound words like bill, fold, nail, file, bus, token. Phrasal verbs: look up a word, call up a friend, turn on the TV, look like your mother, and matching those up. Another book that my students enjoy and that work well with multi-level are the pictures where you have to spot the difference between the 2 different things. The lower level students will be very good at being able to identify the differences, and they can feel useful in that. And the higher level students, well, we actually put sentences up on the board. What was different about the 2 pictures? Okay, yes, a button. Okay, but what can you tell me about the button? She has 3 buttons on her cuff. Cuff's probably going to be a new word. Or the student may say she's missing a button. Button, for a lower level student, would be a vocabulary word that would be necessary and useful for them. And so they may walk away from it just with the word button, and a higher level student might get the word cuff or see how to do missing in a passive sense. Now we're going to take some time to share with you 3 different but simple activities, separately targeting at first me with low level, and then Georgia will have intermediate, and then I'll come back with advanced level activities. But since we know many classes are multi-level, we'll also be sharing how these activities can be tweaked to meet the needs of everybody in your class. Once again, we need to meet their needs so they're content, and they're also going to be our biggest recruiters, coming back to that. The first activity is designed for lower level students and is called Information Scramble. Basically, the students are given a worksheet with 2 columns, maybe 10 rows, that would be the max. One column, as you see on the screen, has a piece of desired information or a question, and the other column is empty for the student to write his simple answer. Not necessarily a sentence, and I really don't want them to write a sentence at this point, just an answer. Personal information with your first name, middle name, last name, address, apartment number, city. The second slide shows WH questions. Where do you live? Why do you like Chicago? Or in our case, we might change that to Alabama, or you can put in the name of your city. What's your favorite food? Who's next to you? When is your birthday? After they've filled it out, then they cut up the page into 20 different rectangles. So you'll want to go to the dollar store and get a bunch of those little cheap scissors and have them on hand for your class. Then the student needs to try to rearrange the worksheet, matching up the information with their answer to that information. Then they trade cards with a partner, and they try to match up their partner's information. This may require some oral work, back and forth with the partner, trying to clarify some things and asking some questions. This is a duplicate of the previous slide where I introduced this topic, but here I wanted to highlight some of my objectives and my focus for the beginner students. Personal information, legible writing, reading from left to right. That's why you have the information on the left side and then they fill in with their information on the right side. Uppercase and lowercase when you're talking about cities and their names. Reading short, simple sentences, because from this I would put sentences on the board from their information and let them see how Pedro first name turns into a sentence. His first name is Pedro. Using simple communication strategies, please repeat as they're working with their partners. A lot of other possibilities. We have some time. I wanted to share some other ideas for you. It's just a matter of making up the worksheet. We will have some of these worksheets available on the CD for you to download, but the possibilities are really endless. Think about what topic you're covering in class, and you can turn it into an information scramble. You just need to make sure that the answers are going to be specific to the question. For instance, with family, you can't really say, what's your mother's name, who is your mother, and who is your sister, because it's going to be 2 female names and it's going to be difficult to figure out. Now, you could possibly do how many cousins do you have. That's going to be a rather large number. Marital status, anniversary, spouse's name, hometown, if you're on a family unit. House questions, you could ask for information like how many rooms does your house have? How many bathrooms? So obviously 2 compared to 6. Nobody would have 6 bathrooms, so they'd be able to figure that out. Your street, your city, your county, your zip code, the size of your bed, talk about twin and full and king and queen, the color of your sofa, the size of your TV. Most of our students all have televisions, and those are all information questions that they can find the answers to and they can distinguish from. If you're dealing with a community unit, your favorite restaurant, where you buy groceries, where children go to school, a local department store, a local discount store, a local bank. They may have different answers from their neighbor, but they should be able to recognize that, oh, Compass is a bank, Regions is a bank, and match things up that way. This activity can work for a multi-level class as well, because higher level students can have different tasks to do from the exact same worksheet and the exact same activity. Design the activity especially for your lower level students, and then tweak it up to meet the needs of everyone. If you can see there, high beginners can unscramble, just like the beginners did, and then say or write sentences with adjectives, his name, her name, or possessives. John's hometown is Denver. Low intermediate students can unscramble and say or write sentences using conjunctions, and, but, because. Maybe have to make some guesses as to why he has a single bed. Well, he's single. He's not married. High intermediate students can unscramble then and say or write sentences with tag questions and reported speech. He lives in Fort Payne, doesn't he? His house has 7 rooms, doesn't it? Advanced students can unscramble, likewise, the same thing, and then say or write sentences with transitional adverbs. However, therefore, in his neighborhood, children go to school at Plainview. However, he doesn't have any children. And so they're using different structures. with the same basic activity.
Going to word building, word making, vocabulary, I have an exercise that I use in class called Making Words, and it helps get students up out of their seats to move around the classroom. Remember my motto, interactive. It's a lot of fun to do. The students correct each other with spelling and word choice and things like that, and I think I have some video to show you of that right now. For this exercise I call Making Words, I write a word on the board. Usually it's a word that we've used somehow in the lesson for that day, and then I remind students how important the vowels are in making new words. So I usually put on the board the vowels, A, E, I, O, and U, and then we look at the word that we're given. Concentrate. We have A, 2 E's, and an O. What are we missing?
You and
I are missing, exactly. So we can't make any words that require a U or an I. So I'm going to give you a few minutes, and in your notebooks, see how many words you can make using the letters in this word, concentrate. We talked too about the necessity of vowels in making words, the A, E, I, O, and U. Virtually every sentence in every word in English requires a vowel in it. So vowels are very necessary in word formation. The word Alabama or Mississippi, for example, may have a fair number of letters in them, but try making other words out of it. You're limited to A's and I's. So a variety of the vowels are so important in word making.
Here we see the same slide before about word making, and we've highlighted some of the intermediate skills that are emphasized for this activity that Georgia uses, especially focusing on the vocabulary building and spelling, using a dictionary, applying correct stress in the multisyllabic words, modifying stress, how that changes with a prefix or a suffix, predicting stress in new words, using vocabulary for gently correcting each other, as you saw in the video. However, this activity, while it is mostly an intermediate level activity, can be tweaked up and down to meet the needs of everybody in your class. Literacy students could just copy some of the words on the board, sound out and spell the 3-letter words that they found. Low beginners can group the words by the beginning consonant sounds, voiced and voiceless. High beginners can circle the consonant clusters as the words are put up on the board. They can put a small group of the words into alphabetical order. They can notice the short and long vowels and go up on the board and mark those. They can work on pronouncing the words that are in past tense or turning the verbs up there into past tense and pronouncing it. Advanced students can sort words by part of speech. They could change verbs into infinitives or gerunds. They can change adjectives into adverbs. So while yes, you have a list of words on the board that you've worked with as you've made these words, you can then use this and branch out in all different directions to meet everybody's needs. Modeling is a process I use in the classroom often. I like to think I'm modeling all the time. And by modeling, I mean trying to speak clearly and distinctly in front of the class. Other times I might hand them a text, and then I'll have a copy of the text, and I'll read it to them, asking them to pay particular attention to pronunciations in that particular passage. It may be a text that has words in it that consonant blends, for example, that give them difficulty in pronouncing it. So just listening to the words pronounced by the teacher can be very helpful. Idioms are lots of fun to use in class, and they are interesting to students, but they're also challenging for students because sometimes if they have never heard the idiom before, they have no clue as to what someone is saying. This first idiom, turnabout, is fair play. You see the woman inside the bird cage, and the bird is outside looking in. So turnabout is fair play. Means it's good to be on the other side of something for a change. Something costing an arm and a leg means it's expensive. Regular is cost an arm plus cost a leg. And premium will cost you your firstborn child. It's a piece of cake.
I say that oftentimes in class to the students, meaning it's something that's very easy. I'll ask them after I'll give them a test, for example, was that a piece of cake? And they might say, yes, teacher, or no, teacher, no piece of cake.
Here's a few books that I have found with very good visualizations. Just opened up to a page here, and you can see Dress to Kill. Two warriors, a Viking one and a knight, Dress to Kill. Give Someone the Slip. You see a lady running away and the security guard with a slip in his hand. These are categorized by different chapters. When things go well, when things go wrong. Using body idioms, people do strange things. Animal idioms, idioms about clothes. A very good book, that's where I opened up again. Leave Someone High and Dry. You see the arcs on top of a little mountain. Selling Someone Short. And this is another one, American Heritage Dictionary of Idioms. For our students that don't need visuals, this is not a visualization at all. This is more for a serious student. Idioms and phrasal verbs. But just check the resource CD and we'll have a lot of that information available for you there.
Tongue twisters are an easy way to practice consonant blends, the TH sounds, the CR sounds, the BL, the PL sounds that are sometimes frequently difficult for second language learners to pronounce. Also, they're shown to be helpful for people who have had perhaps a stroke or having other speech problems. Doing tongue twisters has been proven to be very helpful in those patients. Often we just do them because they're fun. The Myth of Miss Muffet. I usually ask the students to pronounce them 3 times. In this one, they're working on the pronunciation of the TH sound and that S sound that can be problematic. Freshly fried flying fish, working on the FR sounds and the FL sounds, which can be problematic to students, particularly some of our Asian students have difficulty with those pronunciations. But they're very good, and on top of all that, they're fun. That's the main thing. I have one more for you. Are our oars oak? That almost sounds like a seal, doesn't it? But again, try these in class. You can find them on the internet, plenty of them, tons of them. And I'll do that when I have just a few minutes left at the end of a class period, for example. Or if I can find one that works well with the pronunciation lesson we've been doing that day in class. So those are fun to do also. I like to use jazz chants on occasion. Carolyn Graham has books out on this. One in particular I like to use around Columbus Day is called Columbus Sailed Across the Sea, without a phone, without TV. I divide the class in half, put one class on one row on one side and the other, the respondents. Jazz chants are reminiscent of the old sound-off used in the military. Same principle. You have one side that will say a couple of lines and the opposite side will respond to it. As I said, you can get these in Carolyn Graham's books, or also you can find them on the internet. The other poem about Columbus, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, you could also use as a jazz chant. Works very well with the rhymed couplets there. These are available to practice verb tenses, to practice on responding yes-no questions, social skills questions, and they're very fun to do too. I like to engage the students with activities that are fun when I can. I tell them often it's okay to have fun while you're learning.
In a multi-level class, I've applied the jazz chants with a CD. It can be an independent small group activity. They can go in the corner of the room with a CD, or maybe I just recorded it into the computer or a tape. We still have a cassette tape in one of our classrooms, and they can practice themselves. They may need to practice a little 2-minute chant for 10, 15 minutes until they feel comfortable doing it. They can rewind and do it again and rewind and do it again. to get their confidence and to build those muscles for the fluency. As I'm working with another group, I may wander back and listen and can help with a couple pronunciation things, but pretty much they can do that on their own. And then they like to perform it for the class when we come back together again. A little confidence builder, something that they can do on their own.
Class presentations. Sometimes we'll have students in the class who are just naturally shy, or who come from cultures where speaking out in class just isn't done very much. I find class presentations to be an excellent way to get students involved when I send them to the map with a pointer and ask them to tell about their countries. I usually give them a day's notice in advance so that they can be prepared to do that. Remember, public speaking is not easy for them. So they'll tell about the monetary, the money they use in their countries, the foods, the climate, what kind of government they have, things like that. And even students who are normally very quiet in class will get up and speak in such warm tones about their country. So that's a good method to get students up and participating.
The activity that I want to highlight today for advanced students are anecdotes. And like the information scrambles and like George's word making, they can be used with any classroom topic. We picked activities to share today that you can use again and again. Students don't mind doing an activity again because they have the confidence, they know what's expected, and they don't need to worry about following the directions and figuring out what to do. Adult students have a lifetime of experiences and anecdotes, and this helps them gain confidence in sharing those experiences. All you need to do as a teacher is to prepare a list of questions that will awaken and bring back some memories for your students. Ask the students to close their eyes and slowly read your list of questions about a special birthday, a shopping trip I will never forget, a time I was scared, a funny, embarrassing, exciting thing happened to me at school. I try to read the questions slowly, without a lot of expression, giving them time to bring back the memories. Initially, when you ask them, they're not going to remember anything. How convenient. Hey, if I don't remember anything, I don't have to say anything, right? But given time, the memories will come. You may have to read the questions a couple times. Then pass out a handout of these questions or use a board or an overhead and have them write short answers to the questions that pertain to them. You may want to put little boxes out in the column, and then they can put a little check mark or tick off the ones that pertain to their story. Not every question will pertain to someone's specific anecdote. Give them some time to sit there and think about it and write their answers. This is a quiet time for the class. Sometimes I put on some classical music or just something just to emphasize this is an independent, individual thinking time. There's no talking going on. Maybe something you want to let them go home and come back with, but most of the times my students don't do it at home. We need to actually take the time in class and give them that 10, 15 minutes of think time. Then I pass out little cards and have them write notes only, not sentences, just notes to answer the questions that were on the worksheet. Some students like to copy the card into their notebook so they can practice it at home, but I keep the cards. And now it's time to practice. Sometimes I have them kind of put a little person in their hand and tell Annette your anecdote before they tell a partner. Tell someone else. One time I taped little faces all around the wall and said, okay, find somebody on the wall and tell them your anecdote. And it was just a cutout from a magazine before they actually tell a person, depending on how comfortable they are with themselves and with each other. While they're practicing, I wander around and maybe help them with pronunciation. I may take some notes of some things that I'm hearing grammar-wise that we can discuss later on the board. Practice, practice. I keep the cards, and 2 weeks later, we have 5-10 minutes at the end of class, everybody gets one of their cards again. and they do it again. My goal is that they will get comfortable with this anecdote, that it will be a part of who they are. And when they're in a situation where their anecdote applies, hey, let me tell you about the time when, and it may flow naturally and help them to converse in English. Be sure to collect the cards back and keep them in a safe place. Here you can see the main objectives, again, for doing this activity with advanced students. The goal is that they will have a bank of personal stories they can use in general conversation. You can see the active listening. We practice how to be a good listener, correcting each other for clarification, using clauses, transitioning within your story. As far as other ideas, there is a document on the CD. If you have a color printer, you can actually print the pictures out, but all that's showing as I flip through are the pictures, but it actually has lists of questions already prepared for topics like a recent vacation, a wedding you've recently been to, a party that was great or a disaster, your most treasured possession, a recent movie, the last time you bought a present, a favorite time of year, a close friend you have now or a childhood friend, a time that you won or lost at something, the healthiest person you know, your first home, a trip to the emergency room. Tie it in with whatever else you're talking about in class and check the CD for these resources. This activity can be adapted to lower level students as well. Literacy students can simply do a reading activity and make it very simple. I was this, I ate this, I liked this, and they can work on smiling and nodding their head and having eye contact when they listen. Low beginners, a little bit further, they should be able to do, high beginners should be able to use their past tense without as much necessarily fill in the blank. Low intermediates can just express their emotions about the event that happened. They should be able to identify some details and rephrase and paraphrase the answer or to the anecdote to someone else. High intermediates should be able to respond to requests for clarification within their anecdote. And they can ask appropriate questions as they're listening, so you can deal with listening skills as well.
Some of the books I like to use in my classroom are the Contemporary Reader, Jonestown publishers. They come in a number of volumes and numbers on a variety of subjects, from the Pony Express to Pirates of the Past and all things in between. It's a great little series of books on interesting topics. Here's an article here about bamboo that was really, really interesting. But the vocabulary is not really difficult, and they're fun to do. Again, it's a reading comprehension lesson. Living in the USA is a favorite book. Unfortunately, it's out of print, so if you have some, you're lucky. Some students have told me that they can find it used on the internet. So check around that if you're interested. It's a really good book. We also have the skill sets workbooks for students to use. This one is Mastering Parts of Speech, Improving Spelling and Capitalization, Building Punctuation Skills, and Mastering Parts of Speech. I already said that one, didn't I? But anyway, these are good. Students can work independently. Sometimes I let them carry them home to work on over the weekend, and then we go over them in class, checking the grammar. Ventures is a book that some of our teachers are using. Spectrum Reading, this is my personal book. You can find this at Staples, other school supply or bookstores. It has a page of text, and then it has a page for the quiz following the text. Again, a reading comprehension, which I work on a lot in my classroom. A good book. I have it in level 5 and 6. Okay, and I like the Challenger series. I use books 5 and 6 in that. It's a fairly new series that's out. This is the second edition, but other editions were good too. Mastering Idiomatic English. This one is on prepositional phrases. An excellent book. The author has divided prepositions into 15 different types. It gives the definitions of what they mean, and then there are 4 graded exercises to do within the using those prepositions on that page.
I personally like a series, New American Streamline. They have 3 books: Departures, Connections, and Destination. It gives the students the satisfaction of doing a book, but it gives me loads of open doors for supplementing with activities that can target more of their individual needs. Conversation, grammar, extra reading, pronunciation, but gives them the structure of, hey, if I miss a day, I miss a lesson. And so some students need that little bit of extra pull, and they like to keep collection of all their lessons. In contrast, Ventures, as Georgia mentioned, is very, very, very complete. You've got a student book, you've got a workbook, you've got a teacher's edition, which is full of ideas and supplemental activities, and there's something called Adventures, Designs for Multi-Level. It has 3 pages of almost the identical worksheet. One has a checkbox in the first box, one has a check mark in the second, and the follow has a check mark in the third. One with the check marks on the second box is designed for the basic, this is book 1, the basic beginner student. The check mark in the first box means this is going to be students that are a little lower than that, and the third one a little higher. The exact same activity. Here I'm using a word bank and filling in each individual word. Here I don't have a word bank, I just have the first letter. And here I don't even have the first letter, I just have to identify the part of the body from where it's pointing. As these students work together, they can compare answers and figure out the right answers from the 3 sheets. A lot of work went into making that, and even if you didn't use the series but wanted to use the worksheets, I think that could be a possible tool. On the teacher CD, there's something called the Teacher Toolkit. They have collaborative activities already made for all 4 levels, all 10 chapters, and 6 activities per chapter. This is the health chapter. You've got a collaborative activity where you have 2 pictures in looks like an emergency waiting room or a doctor's office waiting room, and you have to find the differences. Already done, already applies to your topic. Here's a student interview. The students are supposed to act like they have problems and find out what's wrong and fill it in there. Here's one where you pick a picture. There's 6 pictures and they're slightly different. The student picks a picture in their mind, writes it down, and the other student asks them, does Rosa have a headache? Well, no, in my picture she has a sprained ankle. So by asking yes/no questions, they'll figure out which picture I'm talking about. There's a little conversation to cut up and put in order. There are words to categorize if they're months or problems or parts of the body. There's an appointment. You have to read the sentences. It's actually dictation. The patient is Roberta Thompson, so under patient's name, I'm going to write Roberta Thompson. Already made for you, and yes, these will supplement any unit on health. They also come with self-assessments and tests and vocabulary lists and things like that. But even if you don't use the Venture series, I would recommend Adventures and a set of the teacher textbooks where you can use the teacher toolkit. Keep in mind the textbooks, however good, are only a tool. The key is to meet your students' needs. We test them when they enter into our program to identify a nationally agreed upon level based on their abilities. And this level should help us identify what they can do and what they should be learning now in order to progress to the next level. Teaching these skills should be the focus of our lesson planning. Textbook companies may think they've done the work already, but we can use content standards to help us plan lessons and supplement our textbooks. These can also help us when we're doing our POIs. That's a plan of instruction. That should be a part of every student's folder. Simply put, a POI is a running record of what the student has learned in class. It should contain the student's name, the class, specific dates, concepts that have been studied and mastered, and material used. Since this is in the student's folder, it should follow him from class to class through the adult education experience. And it gives the next teacher a good idea of what he's done or what he may be missing and may still be needing. There are several different ways to do POIs, so check on the resource CD for some special information about that. We're going to spend a few minutes looking at some content standard documents that other states have prepared. Alabama's ESL does not have her own content standards yet as of 2012. That'll probably change in the future. But for now, we can get many helpful ideas from what's already available out there. And don't forget to check on the CD. We're going to take a brief look at how 5 states have approached their content standards and how they can help us as ESL teachers. To simplify things, I've just started at the literacy level with the first state on the list, and we'll work our way up from there. Here with Arizona's, we see a detailed examination of writing abilities for the literacy level. In the Arizona document, they examined 5 levels of student abilities in all 4 basic areas: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. This was the only document of the 5 that I looked at that looked at it as students' abilities as either beginning, approaching, meeting, or exceeding what the level required. This would be a great tool to examine an individual student and ascertain exactly where his skills lie. Arizona also had some sample activities for each level, using all 4 skills and including main objectives and vocabulary. Moving up to beginners, California has a special section on culture skills for each level, things that we can be teaching in our class. Plus, they have exit skills that are needed by a student at this level. They cover exit skills for all 4 levels. Listening was listed on the previous page. California also includes sample lessons for each level, incorporating all 4 skills again, with a very clear topics, objectives, function, and form. Could tie in very well with supplementing a textbook lesson or building your own without even using a textbook. Nevada has a unique side-by-side approach, which I think would be really good in a multi-level situation. They show you a task and then follow it through all 6 levels. For example, following directions moves from following a simple classroom direction like open your book, through 2-step directions, then moving directions into a range of different contexts, not just in a classroom, and finally with detailed explanations with your advanced students. Focusing on high beginners with this document, we can see an extensive listing of appropriate civics objectives, from abbreviations in the community to understanding simple literature on home safety. And remember, this is just for high beginners. They've also got civics objectives for low beginners, literacy, high intermediates, advanced, the whole scope. Pennsylvania's document was the shortest and most concise of the 5 I examined. And moving on up to talk about low intermediate students, we see a summary of the level descriptors. What should a student do at this level, as well as workplace skills. There's also a listing of themes and topics that correlate with helping our students make progress at this level. If you've got a class of low intermediate students, right here, suggested topics gives you a starting block, a place where you can springboard from and build your class and your lessons. There's a 1-page chart for each level listing specific things to cover. Besides the regular listening, speaking, reading, and writing, you'll also find some pronunciation skills and grammar structures to work on in class. In fact, as I made those tweaking charts that dealt with the information scrambles and the working with words and the anecdotes, a lot of the skills for the different levels, how to tweak it, came from Pennsylvania's chart as I saw what skills the different levels should be working on. Texas has a very basic side-by-side ability chart for each of the 4 main skills, again covering 6 levels. And then they have a more in-depth chart dealing again with how the skill progresses through the 6 levels. For instance, in pronunciation, students move from simple vowel consonants to identifying similar sounds within a conversational context, to recognizing and understanding the words mixed with regional and non-native sounds, dealing with y'all. Texas has a very exclusive lesson bank with a table of contents, an extensive lesson bank, divided up with the 4 basic skills again, but their resources are more web-based. On the CD, you will not actually find their document, you'll find a link to their web page. Or you can just search for Texas Adult Education Standards, and that page will have links to all the information that we've seen here. Right now, we see a first page of a lesson on American humor, designed for intermediate and advanced learners. Has objectives, materials, how much time to prepare, how much time for the lesson, as well as the how-to for the actual lesson itself.
One of the things I like to do with the Level 4 class is to get together once a month, when we can, for a video series called Crossroads Cafe. The setting is a multinational group. Mr. Brashoff is the owner. He's from Romania. Henry is there. He's from China. Jamal is from Egypt. Rosa is from Mexico. And then there are Americans in there as well. Then we get together and we talk about the episode. What was the episode really about? There's the message, and then there's the deeper message in these. It's a really nice series. The videos themselves take about 25 minutes, and then we usually spend 30, 45 minutes after that going over them and talking about them. It gives my level 3 class the intermediate opportunity to be with the next level class, which is level 4, which is our pre-GED class. But we like to get together and have conversations about these topical events. Easy English News is a newspaper that is the absolute favorite of all my students. It comes out monthly except during the summer. It deals with topical issues. This particular one is the January 2012 issue, and it's about the election process. It has articles about the United States, history. It has some civics in it also, and a page for letters to the editor. 2 of my former students have had letters published in here, and that was a real thrill for them. There's a crossword puzzle in the back. This is what they get to do the very last day. We usually take 2 or 3 days to cover this, just using it for part of the class over a 3-day time.
It comes with a handout, doesn't it?
It does. It comes with a prepared quiz. And I let them have like an open newspaper quiz because it's a test on being able to read, scan the article for information. It's not a memory test. So I let them have the newspaper while they look up the answers to the questions. All the words in the newspaper that are in bold are printed on the back. It's a virtual gold mine for vocabulary building. And as I said, the students just really enjoy this so much. This is the contact information. Ms. Elizabeth Clare is the publisher of this. She will send free samples. If you want to contact her, she'll send you those. These are some of the websites that I have found that are helpful in looking up materials for ESL. www.usalearns.org is a free course in class. Students can work on this at home and in the classrooms. Teachers can monitor their process. And then ESL Gold, EL Civics, and manythings.org are also websites that have quite a bit of information for the students.
We have some others listed there at the bottom. You can check them out and see what they say. Listening and reading along. I've had students that really want to practice that independently. So some of those bottoms deal with listening. Ventures Arcade is not underlined because it's not actually a web link. Put it into your search engine. It has lots of online preparation for the citizenship test. You'll find these resources also on the CD. I think your program actually uses some purchased software as well.
We use the read-on program in my intermediate level class. The students work once a week generally on the computers for about an hour and 15 minutes. The first part of the class, essentially. Rosetta Stone has been used in the past by some as Tell Me More. Side-by-side interactive. Some students take readily to the computer and enjoy it and think of it as a treat. Those tend to be students who have a good bit of knowledge about the computer and are comfortable using the computer. Other students don't know how to type, for example. And for them, working on the computer might be a real pain, whereas others, it may be a real joy. So you'll have to judge your students, and if a student is just struggling with the computer and maybe you've noticed they don't come to class on computer day or something like that, you might need to find another activity for those students. But by and large, most of my students enjoy it, and even some who can't type well are able to use the program.
Some different translation sites that we listed in here, Babelfish and the Google Translator, can be useful when you're dealing, especially with Georgia's situation, with so many different nationalities. Mm-hmm. Do you use it mostly for like looking up words? Or?
I just use it kind of personally, but others can use it too. I've had students from more than 60 different countries, mm-hmm. So it's a wide variety of students and languages and cultures. And sometimes it's just real helpful if you can pull up that particular word that you're looking for.
so you can
Right.
explain it to them.
Right.
And or put the see the
Right.
sentence structure.
Yes, yes.
Dealing mostly with the bilingual population in our area, we can use that translation tool right in class. We can even get somebody from an advanced class to come down and explain something to a lower level student in their own language. So a translation site can be very helpful. You can't always draw or act out everything.
Right.
And even bilingual dictionaries are really hard to find in all the languages. We had some people from Eritrea, and we found an Eritrean online dictionary.
Wow.
We were able to print it, and their words are arranged topically instead of alphabetical order because their alphabet is so different. But you want to be able to meet all their needs. We listed ALAPCAE because it's a bilingual site with grammar explanations in Spanish. Students will hear English pronunciation as they work through it, but it actually explains things in Spanish, which might be helpful in a bilingual situation if you don't speak Spanish. And it may be helpful for your students. As we wind down here, we'd like to encourage new as well as experienced teachers to visit newamericanhorizons.org. They have 8 half-hour adult ed teacher training videos available for free online. You can order the DVDs. I think one DVD costs $6, and I think they have both of them on 2 DVDs, or all 8 are on 2 DVDs. Oh no, it says 3 DVDs in all. They are very well done, short little half-hour things, enjoyable, full of relevant practical ideas, different topics, life skills on the telephone, teaching your students how to use telephone, literacy with emergent readers using a learner-generated story, developing vocabulary with beginners, working with a multi-level class, listening with high intermediate students, using life stories to work with present perfect and past, writing skills, interactive reading lessons. How often are reading lessons more just reading, but actually turning that into something interactive? I encourage every teacher, experienced or not, to spend some time at this website in free professional development for yourself. And I found them really enjoyable, and you can walk away from any of them with something new to add to your pocketbook of tools.
We have parties in my classroom. They're becoming legendary because we try to invite other students and other teachers to join us. I think it's really a good socialization skill for our students. Again, we have so many different cultures in my classroom that this is a really good opportunity for students to bring some of their ethnic foods to sample, and then they can share recipes with each other. So it's a good morale builder for attending class and being there as part of our group. Accolades: don't forget to praise your students. Tell them they're doing a good job or they're making good effort. We all respond to praise of some sort. It's positive feedback for us. So if you can compliment your students on their attendance or they're trying to do the work, and their advancement according to their test scores too. All of those things are positive reinforcement things that we can tell our students, and hopefully that again will return in the way of keeping students in the classroom and helping them to recruit other students.
And as adults, they're good at encouraging each other. And we enjoy working with our students. They have become our family and our friends.
Absolutely.
And this wraps up ESL Instruction 101. We hope it was enjoyable and informative. Take time to go through the CD for the different resources. Our contact information is here, and we'd be glad to help clarify things or give you any extra help that you need along the way.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.